The Labyrinth of No Return, the Galaxy, had many stories of death, but none were darker than the tale of the Death Labyrinth. It was not just a maze of walls and traps. It was a place built to test the strongest of all species, a place where courage, skill, and strength always failed. No one had ever come back alive. To enter the labyrinth was to accept death. For generations, alien empires had sent their warriors inside. Champions with claws, fangs, weapons, and machines had stepped into the dark corridors. All of them vanished. Some screams were heard for a while. Some lights flashed on the screens. But in the end, silence always came, and the labyrinth claimed another life. The arena around the labyrinth was filled with alien spectators. Hundreds of species gathered in the stands, their eyes glowing, their voices eager. They had come to watch another trial, another sacrifice. To them, it was entertainment. To the warriors, it was doom. When the announcer spoke, the crowd roared. Another challenger, another fool to enter the labyrinth of no return. The name of the new challenger appeared on the great screen. The audience fell into sudden laughter. They could not believe what they saw. A human? One alien hissed. A weak creature, another laughed. They will die in the first trap, a warlord sneered. The laughter spread like fire. To the galaxy, humanity was still small, still unproven. They were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most advanced. They were seen as fragile things, barely holding their place among the stars. And now, one of them had stepped forward to face the labyrinth. The doors at the far end of the arena opened. Out came the human challenger. He walked slowly, his boots striking the metal floor. He wore no shining armor, no advanced exosuit, no great weapons. Only a simple suit, light and plain, with a small pack on his back. His eyes were calm, steady, like someone who had already accepted death. The crowd booed. Some aliens threw objects from the stands. Others shouted insults. Meat for the labyrinth. Watch how quickly it ends. Another weak race crushed. But the human did not react. He did not bow. He did not shout. He did not raise his fists. He only looked at the massive black gates of the labyrinth. His expression was strange. Not of fear, but of quiet focus. The announcer raised his voice again. Behold, the Death Labyrinth. Once the gates close, there is no escape. The walls shift, the traps hunt, the very maze itself will fight. No one has ever survived. Not the strongest, not the fastest, not the smartest. And now one human dares to try. The crowd roared in laughter and cheers. The human stepped to the edge. The gates of the labyrinth towered over him like the jaws of a beast. Carvings of skulls and bones were etched into the metal. The air that seeped out was cold, smelling of oil and blood. He paused for a moment, as if listening to something only he could hear. Then, with a deep breath, he walked forward. Gates opened with a heavy groan, the sound echoing across the arena. Darkness stretched inside, swallowing all light. The human did not flinch. He entered, and the gates slammed shut behind him. The crowd erupted with cheers, laughter, and bets. Many were already placing their credits on how long he would last. 10 seconds? A minute? 5 at most. None believed he could reach even the second chamber. Inside, silence greeted him. The walls were alive, shifting with slow grinding sounds. The floor rumbled under his feet, and he could feel the air moving, as if the labyrinth itself was breathing. The first trap came quickly. A wall slammed down from above, sharp spikes covering its surface. The human rolled forward just in time, the spikes striking the floor behind him with a thunderous crash. He rose calmly, dusting off his suit, his eyes scanning every corner. The walls moved again, opening a new path. Fire burst from vents, covering the corridor in a wave of heat. The human crouched low, waiting, studying the rhythm. Then he moved, quick and precise, slipping past the flames before they erupted again. From hidden chambers, mechanical claws shot out, aiming to tear him apart. The human sidestepped, letting one claw strike the wall and snap off. He grabbed the broken piece, weighing it in his hand. A faint smile touched his lips. In the control room above the arena, alien overseers leaned forward, confused. He should be dead, one muttered. How did he see the trap coming? Another asked. Luck, a warlord growled. It will not last. But the human was not moving like the others had. He was not rushing in fear, not stumbling in panic. He was calm, measured, as if each step was part of a plan. The labyrinth growled, its walls shifting faster, the traps closing in. But still, the human pressed on, his mind sharp, his movements precise. And in the stands, for the first time, the laughter faded. The crowd leaned closer, their voices lowering to whispers. Could this human actually survive? The traps close. In the labyrinth did not wait. As soon as the human crossed deeper inside, the walls shuddered like a beast waking from sleep. The floor beneath him split into tiles, some steady, some trembling. From the ceiling, sharp blades swung down in arcs. Gleaming in the dim light, most challengers would have run. Fear made them stumble into the wrong path. Fear made them rush into death, but not the human. He stood still for a moment, letting the blades swing past him. His eyes followed their rhythm, his head tilting slightly, like a hunter studying prey. Then he moved, not rushing, but stepping between. The blades with careful timing. The metal hissed past his hair, close enough to cut. Still, he did not flinch. Above, in the viewing gallery, alien spectators shouted in disbelief. He should be chopped already. Why is he so calm? No, he's watching the traps. He's reading them. The human reached the end of the corridor, only to find it split into 3 passages. The walls rumbled, shifting back and forth like breathing lungs. Fire vents opened in one path. Acid dripped from another, and the third was dark, with faint whispers echoing through it. Audience waited for him to hesitate. Many challengers had lost themselves at this choice. Pick fire and burn. Pick acid and melt. Pick darkness and lose your mind. But the human did something unexpected. He crouched down. He touched the floor. He ran his fingers lightly across the stone, feeling tiny grooves and cracks. He leaned close to the wall, smelling the faint scent in the air. Then he chose the path of darkness. The crowd roared with laughter. Fool! A giant reptilian warlord shouted. The darkness eats your mind. No one comes back. The human entered anyway, and the shadows swallowed him. Inside, it was silent, too silent. His footsteps echoed unnaturally, like whispers answering. Back, the air was thick, heavy, pressing on his chest. Shapes moved in the corner of his eyes, but when he turned, there was nothing. The labyrinth was playing tricks. He remembered Earth, nights in the forest when he was young. His father had told him, darkness cannot hurt you. Only fear can. So he closed his eyes. He ignored the shadows. He listened instead. A faint drip of water, a small current of air, a whisper of movement. With each sound, he built the path. In his mind. Slowly, carefully, he walked forward. The labyrinth grew angrier. Illusions grew stronger. He saw visions of fire, floods, monsters. He heard voices of people screaming his name, voices begging him to turn back. But he did not break. His breathing was steady, his steps firm. He whispered to himself, a simple earth phrase, one step at a time. In the viewing gallery, silence spread. The aliens were confused. Some leaned closer to the screens. He ignores the illusions. No, he is using them. He listens to the sound, not the sight. He should be afraid. Why isn't he afraid? At last, the darkness opened into a new chamber. The walls here were lined with spikes, dripping with the blood of those who had failed before. In the center, a bridge stretched across a pit of spinning blades. The humans stepped forward. The bridge shifted. Sections fell away into the pit, then reformed again in random order. The blades below spun faster, sending sparks flying. Most challengers had tried to run across. They all failed. The bridge shifted too quickly, dropping them into death. But the human didn't run. He crouched, again touching the surface. He looked at the timing of the shifting tiles. He studied the rhythm. Then, with surprising calm, he moved step by step, leaping only when the bridge shifted in his favor. The crowd gasped. Impossible. He's predicting the pattern. No, he's feeling the pattern. Halfway across, the labyrinth fought back harder. Entire sections of the bridge collapsed at once. The air filled with the roar of grinding blades. The human nearly slipped, his foot landing on a stone that vanished under him. For a breath, his body dangled above the spinning death. The crowd shouted, waiting for him to fall. But with quick reflex, he jammed the broken claw he had taken earlier between two stones. It caught just enough to hold him. Using it, he pulled himself back to safety. The audience froze. He was not only surviving, he was using the labyrinth's own weapons. Against it, step by step, the human made it across. He landed on the far side, sweat dripping from his face, chest rising with heavy breaths. But his eyes remained calm. He looked back at the spinning pit, then forward to the next shifting wall. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the labyrinth. Like a promise, you don't know Earth yet. The labyrinth groaned in anger. The next traps were already waiting. Asterisk. Earth's hidden trick, the labyrinth hated him now. Its walls shook as if alive. The ground groaned beneath his feet. The alien spectators leaned forward, eyes glowing with hunger. This was no longer entertainment. It was something impossible. Unfolding before them, not every warrior before had fallen by now. Some burned, some crushed, some driven insane. But this human still lived. The labyrinth decided to change its game. The next corridor was narrow, its walls slick and breathing. Strange lights pulsed from cracks, like veins glowing under skin. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of rust and smoke. The human stepped carefully, his senses sharp. He knew the maze was not done. It was preparing something worse, Dot. And then it came. The walls rippled like water, and suddenly the corridor split into hundreds of paths. Each direction looked the same. Each was filled with whispers, shadows, and flickering lights. The labyrinth had created illusions. Alien champions had screamed here before. They had run in circles until they starved, or walked into traps that weren't real but killed them all the same. Dot above. An alien overseer hissed in satisfaction. Now we see the truth. The human's mind will break. Inside, the whispers grew louder. Voices called to him. Some were mocking, some were begging. Some were voices of humans, long gone friends, family, comrades. Turn back. You will die here. Why did you come? Your people are weak. The human froze, closing his eyes. He breathed slowly, steadying himself. On Earth, he had learned something in the wild forests and deserts. Illusions could trick the eye, but the world always left small signs of truth. He crouched, touching the ground. Dust gathered in some corners, but not in others. The air moved faintly in one direction, carrying a different smell. Old stone, not smoke. He smiled. The crowd above whispered in shock. What is he doing? He is smelling the air? He acts like an animal. But step by step, he moved with certainty, ignoring the voices. He followed the faintest hints, the air current, the warmth of the ground. The way sound echoed differently in each passage. The labyrinth grew angry. Illusions sharpened. Now he saw rivers of blood, walls closing in, fire rushing toward him. He heard screams of humans he once knew, but he whispered to himself, "Fear is a weapon. I won't hold it." He pressed on, walking straight through the fire illusion. It burned nothing. He stepped through walls that weren't real. He passed. Monsters that vanished when he touched them. The audience gasped. For the first time, silence fell in the stands. This is not possible. No species has ignored the illusions. He sees through them. The human's path finally opened into another chamber. This one was wide and circular, with tall pillars rising from the floor. The walls shimmered like mirrors, reflecting endless copies of himself. From the mirrors, shadows stepped out, dark versions of him, twisted and armed. They moved like predators, circling him. The labyrinth had made him fight himself. The human gripped the broken claw he carried, holding it like a knife. His eyes narrowed. The first shadow lunged. He sidestepped, stabbing it. The shadow burst into smoke. Another attacked, and another. He fought them, each strike precise, calm, efficient. But the shadows kept coming. 10, 20, 30. All copies. Of him, all faster and sharper. The alien crowd shouted again, hope rising that this would be his end. No one can fight endless enemies. Now he falls, but the human paused. He realized something. Each shadow copied his moves exactly, but they were quicker to attack. Never waiting, he whispered, "You are not me." Then he changed his strategy. Instead of striking, he slowed down, moving unpredictably, shifting his stance, faking steps. The shadows grew confused, stumbling, colliding with each other. With quick strikes, he cut them down one by one until none remained. The mirrors cracked, shattering into dust. The chamber shook violently. The labyrinth was furious. The human stood, breathing hard, but his eyes remained steady. He looked up at the invisible watchers and said softly, "You built this to kill the strong. But Earth teaches us something different. Survival is not strength, it's adaptation." The crowd froze. For the first time in centuries, fear touched the faces of alien warlords. The human was not the strongest, not the fastest, but he carried something the labyrinth could not break. Earth's hidden trick, the ability to adapt to anything. And the labyrinth knew it would have to fight harder. Asterisk, the living maze fights back. The labyrinth had tested him with traps. It had tried to confuse him with illusions. But now it changed. The walls pulsed like muscles. The floor trembled like beating drums. The labyrinth was no longer just a prison. It was alive. The alien crowd gasped as the stone shifted and twisted, forming shapes that had never been seen before. "The maze itself is moving," one shouted. "It adapts. It evolves." Another roared. "It will swallow him whole." Warlord growled. Inside, the human stood still for a moment, watching the walls curl inward. The stones stretched like flesh, becoming jaws lined with sharp teeth. The floor split open, revealing a black pit that breathed heat and smoke. The labyrinth was not content to kill him with traps anymore. It wanted to crush him with its own body. The human clenched the broken claw he carried. His eyes darted, studying the patterns. Every system, every living thing, had a rhythm. He only had to find it. The first strike came fast. A wall lunged forward like a massive fist. He rolled aside, landing hard but alive. Another wall slammed down, almost crushing him flat. Dust exploded in the air, stinging his lungs. He coughed, but kept moving, weaving between the crushing walls. His body moved with earth-born instincts, like someone dodging falling trees in a storm. or boulders on a mountain path, the labyrinth roared. The ceiling dropped spikes, forcing him to dive. Forward, the floor cracked, opening pits of molten fire. Above, the audience screamed with excitement. "Yes, end him!" But some aliens whispered, "No, look at him. He is not running wild. He is calculating." The human slid across the floor, barely escaping a wall that slammed shut behind him. He stopped at a corner, crouched low, and placed his hand against the stone. He could feel vibrations like a heartbeat. The labyrinth had a rhythm. Just like Earth predators had patterns, just like storms had waves, the maze attacked in cycles. He waited, calm in the middle of chaos. When the next attack came, he moved with perfect timing, slipping through gaps a second before they closed. The labyrinth screamed in fury, but he kept going, faster now, using its own rhythm against it. Then the maze shifted into something worse. From the walls, tendrils of black stone stretched out like arms. They whipped toward him, wrapping around his legs and arms. They pulled with crushing strength, trying to drag him into the living wall. He struggled, but the grip was strong. The stone burned like fire against his skin. For a moment, the alien crowd cheered. "It's over." But then, the human did something strange. He didn't fight the pull. Instead, he leaned forward, letting the tendrils drag him closer. At the last second, he jammed the broken claw into the wall's flesh. The wall screamed. The entire labyrinth shook violently, releasing him. The human staggered back, breathing hard. His face was pale, but his eyes glowed with determination. He whispered, "Even living things bleed." The audience fell into silence. They had never seen anyone wound the labyrinth before. The maze grew desperate now. The floor collapsed, turning into a river of shifting sand. The human ran, his feet sinking, his body dragged down. From the sand rose skeletal arms, grabbing, pulling. He remembered deserts on Earth, how quicksand swallowed the careless. The trick was not to fight wildly. It was to move slowly, spread weight, and use what you carried. He tore his small pack from his back, throwing it onto the sand ahead. It spread, giving him a surface to push from. He crawled forward, step by step, until he reached solid stone again. His body was shaking now. Sweat ran down his face, his chest rising in heavy breaths. But his eyes still burned with focus. The labyrinth shuddered, its rage filling every corridor. The walls bent, the floor split, the ceiling dropped. It was no longer a trial. It was war. And yet the human stood in the middle of it all, his voice low, calm, cutting through the chaos. "You want to fight me like a beast? Then you will learn what Earth taught us. We survived storms. We survived predators. We survived a world that never showed mercy. And we learned." He raised the broken claw, pointing it at the twisting walls. Everything alive can be outsmarted. The crowd froze. For the first time, fear flickered in their alien eyes. The labyrinth shrieked, its voice echoing across the galaxy. The real battle had only begun. Asterisk. The final gambit the human had reached deeper than any challenger before him. The labyrinth was shaking now, its walls bending and twisting in rage. The alien spectators sat in silence. Their cheers had died. Their laughter was gone. What had once been entertainment now felt like something else, something dangerous. The human moved into a vast chamber, larger than anything he had seen. The ceiling stretched high above, glowing with red veins of light. The floor was covered with broken bones of past challengers. In the center stood a black sphere, pulsing like a heart. The labyrinth's voice echoed through the chamber. It was deep, ancient, filled with hate. "No one escapes me. You will join the rest." The door sealed behind him. There was no way back. The chamber began to shift, walls turning into towering spikes, the floor splitting into deadly pits. The human stared at the black sphere. He understood now. This was the core, the mind of the labyrinth. If he destroyed it, he could escape. If he failed, he would be buried here forever. The first trap struck. The ground beneath him dropped away, revealing spinning blades below. He leapt to a pillar, landing hard. Another pillar crumbled under his weight, almost sending him falling. The labyrinth laughed, its voice echoing in every corner. You cannot run forever. The human's chest heaved with exhaustion, but his mind was still sharp. He remembered his own words. Every puzzle has a flaw. He only had to find it. He studied the rhythm of the traps, the way the floor opened, the way the walls slammed down, the way the spikes shifted. And then he noticed something. The traps didn't move at random. They pulsed with the same beat as the sphere's glow. The core was controlling everything. He smiled faintly. Found you. The labyrinth roared in anger, unleashing everything. At once, fire burst from vents. Walls collapsed inward. Blades shot from hidden chambers. The human ran, dodging, rolling, sliding between traps. Every step brought him closer to the sphere dot above. The audience could not believe their eyes. He's aiming for the core. No one has ever reached it. If he destroys it, the thought was too much for them. If one human could defeat the labyrinth, then everything they believed about human weakness would collapse. The human leapt from one crumbling platform to another. A wall of spikes surged forward. He ducked under it, rolling across broken bones. A tendril shot from the floor, wrapping around his leg. He slashed it with the broken claw, freeing himself. Finally, he reached the edge of the chamber, standing before the black sphere. It pulsed faster now, almost frantic, glowing with red light. The labyrinth's voice shook the chamber. You are nothing. You are weak. You will die here like all the rest. The human raised the broken claw, staring at his reflection in the sphere's dark surface. His voice was calm, steady. You don't understand humanity. We don't win because we're the strongest. We win because we adapt, because we think differently, because when the world tries to kill us, he drove the claw into the sphere. We find a way to kill it first. The sphere screamed. The sound was like 1,000 voices crying in agony. Cracks spread across its surface, glowing with blinding light. The chamber shook violently, the walls collapsing, the floor splitting apart. The human pulled the claw free and ran. Behind him, the core exploded in a storm of fire and light. The labyrinth shrieked as its power died, the entire maze tearing itself apart, dot above. The alien spectators panicked. The screens went black. The floor trembled beneath their feet. For the first time, fear replaced their excitement. The labyrinth, the thing no one had ever escaped, was dying, and the human was still alive. Asterisk. The impossible escape, the labyrinth, was dying. The walls cracked open, fire bursting through the stone. Like veins of molten blood, the ceiling fell in pieces, crushing everything below. The endless roar of the labyrinth's voice filled the chamber as it screamed in its final rage. No, you cannot leave. You belong to me. The human ran through. The chaos, the broken claw still in his hand. The ground split beneath his feet, opening into pits of fire and spinning blades. He leapt across collapsing stones, rolled under falling debris, and pushed forward. Behind him, the black sphere, the labyrinth's heart, shattered completely. A wave of light burst out, tearing apart the walls, ripping down the illusions, burning away centuries of death dot above. In the arena, the alien spectators screamed in shock. For ages, they had watched the labyrinth claim every challenger. Now, for the first time, it was collapsing before their eyes. Impossible. No one can survive this. The human will be buried. But deep inside, none of them were sure. Anymore. The human reached a massive door, sealed with glowing locks. It was the last barrier between him and freedom. He pressed his hands against it, but it did not open. The labyrinth's voice whispered through the crumbling stone, "You will die with me." The human's breathing was heavy, his body bruised and burned, but his eyes were steady. He looked at the locks, glowing in rhythm with the last pulses of the labyrinth's power. He crouched, studying them. Every system, every machine, every trap had a weakness. Earth had taught him that. You didn't have to be stronger than the storm. You only had to find its flaw. He placed the broken claw into one of the locks. Sparks burst. The glow flickered. He twisted, jamming it deeper. The lock snapped. One down. The ground shook harder. Fire rushed toward him. The ceiling was falling. He worked quickly, breaking another lock, then another. Each time, the claw bent and cracked, but he forced it through. Finally, the last lock shattered. The door groaned, then slid open with a burst of light. The human ran through, just as the chamber collapsed completely behind him. A storm of fire and stone chased him, but he did not stop. He sprinted through the final corridor, leaping across gaps, dodging collapsing walls. Then, ahead, he saw at the outer gates of the labyrinth, the same gates he had entered through, the same gates that had swallowed every challenger before him. He ran faster, his chest burning, his legs screaming with pain. The ground cracked under his feet, but he leapt forward, diving through the gates just as the entire labyrinth behind him exploded in a storm of fire and ash. Silence followed. The alien crowd stared in disbelief. The arena was covered in smoke and dust. For a moment, nothing moved. For a moment, they thought the labyrinth had taken him too. Then, slowly, a figure stepped out from the smoke. The human, his suit was torn. His face was bloodied. His body shook from exhaustion. But his eyes were calm, steady, unbroken. The crowd fell into stunned silence. No laughter, no cheers. Only shock. One alien whispered, "Impossible." Another hissed, "No one escapes." A warlord growled, "A trick. It must have been a trick." The human stood in the center of the arena, looking up at the thousands of alien faces watching him. He raised the broken claw, the only weapon he had carried, and let it fall to the ground with a sharp clang. Then, in a voice steady but quiet, he said, "It wasn't strength that saved me. It was an earth trick. And if one human can escape—" He paused, letting the silence grow heavy. The aliens leaned closer, their fear growing. "Imagine what all of us can do." The words struck harder than any weapon. The crowd recoiled. The warlords exchanged uneasy looks. For the first time, they understood. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was dangerous because they thought differently, because they survived where no one else could. The human turned, walking slowly toward the exit of the arena. The smoke still rose behind him, the ruins of the labyrinth still burning. The galaxy would never forget this moment. The day, the death. Labyrinth was defeated. The day a human did the impossible. Asterisk.